impossible.
Manifest! Do your master's bidding!
Not now. Don't be scared.
Here comes the catch. Merciless. Into the void.
I was destined.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Skirk's been out for a few days now, and I just want to talk about what's probably going to be my personal favorite mono-free Skirk team for the time being. You don't have to use my team, of course. You might land on something else that really speaks to you as your preferred option. But with all the characters that I have, and more importantly all the characters I don't have, well, this team does feel the best in my experience. So before we get into it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because I've got a few videos coming up after this, including a video on the sweatiest Raiden Inquisition rotation guide for both A and Miko on their birthdays that are coming up, and of course the inevitable Mawika rerun video. So if you ring that bell, you can be notified of the latest videos and live streams on the channel. Now, the team that I've been liking a lot lately is with Skirk, Layla, Shenhe, and Yelan. What do each of these characters do? Well, I have Layla built for about as much DPS as I can with her, while still seemingly having a strong enough shield. Obviously, Layla's not going to be doing massive amounts of DPS, but she's doing something, I think. Hopefully. Now I am of course running a crit damage out of a Cryo cup. If I were to run an HP half, for example, it would be a massive DPS loss for Layla herself, whilst having about 4,000 more HP, so it doesn't seem worth it in the grand scheme of things. I haven't really been losing my shield that much, even with the lack of like HP main stat pieces, so everything seems perfectly fine in that regard. I am, of course, using Sac Sword so that I can regularly pop her shield more often, because it does have, for those who don't know, a 12-second duration and a 12-second cooldown. And in my opinion, that cooldown is a little bit too long. So I want to be able to use her shield twice per rotation, ergo the Sac Sword. Meanwhile, I am of course using Tenacity of the Middle Left. This is key. It serves two purposes in particular. Number one, we make that shield stronger, but number two, so long as that shield is active and shooting stars at people, both Skirk and Shenhe get an attack buff, which means Shenhe's quills are getting buffed by Layla. This doesn't buff Layla's own damage nor Yelan's, because of course they're HP scalers, so that's a little bit unfortunate. I have decided to go for a level 90 Layla, since of course she is an HP scaler. Obviously I don't have the resources for that right now, but I am in the process of doing that. I have also tried alternative builds like an EOSF build, but it just seems like having a weaker shield and no attack buff for Skirk and Shenhe in exchange for what seems to be a little bit more ult damage. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be worth it in the grand scheme of things, but I still wanted to reach a bit of a happy medium between having as strong of a shield as possible and having some sort of a DPS build, and that is because of Shenhe, who is able to buff both Skirk and Layla's damage. In this team, I'm mainly using the hold skill every rotation for that normal attack percent buff, as well as +2 quills. Now, I haven't found a rotation that can work well with the 2x tap skill, because this is Skirk we're talking about as opposed to someone like, I don't know, Ayaka. Let me know in the comments if you can think of something, but at least in my experiences so far, it hasn't really come out to be anything all that amazing. But because I'm only using one hold skill per rotation, I am of course using an ER sand, so I do have quite a lot of energy recharge on Shenhe. Yes, even in a triple cryo team, it seems like I actually need that ER sand, because otherwise I'm not getting Shenhe's ult back all the time, and if I don't get Shenhe's ult back all the time, well, I do lose out on some res shred, and that's actually a pretty unique buff that I would like to be able to use all the time. Now, noblesse being the build that I'm using on Shenhe is of course buffing both the quills of Shenhe and of course Skirk's personal damage, but of course once again we're not buffing Layla or Yelan's damage, which is unfortunate because, let me say it again, they're both HP scalers. So altogether there is a total of 40% attack buff that is going to be buffing both Skirk and the quills, and that's coming from both Layla and Shenhe, so we do like that. It is because of the quills that I am trying to do that kind of weird sort of DPS build, so at least the quills themselves are also doing quite a lot more damage when Layla pops her cryo damage, because at the end of the day, that's one of the cool things about Shenhe, which is that she's able to give the entire team quills. Obviously, Yelan can't use them. Skirk's already using them. My Shenhe build is not built for all that much DPS, so she's not exactly using them herself, so I might as well try and make the most of it by having Layla have an actual sort of DPS build with that Cryo Cup as well as some form of a crit ratio. And finally, there's Yelan. Yelan is there as the Hydra character that does a lot of damage, but also buffs Skirk because of that damage percent buff that comes from Yelan's passive. As the only Hydro, she does still fulfill the part of Skirk's third passive where there needs to be at least one Hydro and one Cryo character, so everyone gets +1 talent level, and that's important because of, well, 3 things. Number 1, Skirk does more damage with her skill talent. Number 2, the shield from Layla is stronger with a skill talent level. And then number 3, quills are stronger with Shenhe's skill talent level. So we do like that. Technically, there's also a 4th important thing, which is that Yelan's skill does more damage, which is always nice. So yeah, there we go. Of course, even though Yelan is there to essentially buff Skirk, she can't buff Layla because she only buffs the on-field character. So that's a little bit unfortunate. If we were to do something like that where we want to buff both Skirk and Layla, then obviously we need someone like Furina instead. But I'm not using Furina, and I'll talk about that in a sec. I have stuck with my maximalist ER build on Yelan because I'm lazy, and I just really want Yelan to do as much with her ult as possible and be able to use her ult every rotation. With a team like this, though, with Favj on Shenhe, this is definitely too much ER, so if you want to play this team, you don't need this much ER, but I'm lazy in the sense that there is an Arlecchino Vape team that will need pretty much this much ER on Yelan in order for her to use her ult all the time, which is kind of important because we're talking about Arlecchino Vape at that point. Putting that aside, though, yeah, this is just something I'm just going to stick with because laziness. All of this so that Skirk, leading the team, can do as much damage as she can. Now, obviously, we're not running Furina, so I'm not going to be using Mara Shosei. Thank goodness I actually pre-farmed a finale of the Deep Gallery set. With, of course, an attack cup, because it does seem like even in this team, an attack cup ends up being better. That does seem a little bit odd, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen, when you think that, like, oh, you got Shenhe on the team, surely a Cryo cup would be better. I did the test. I seem to be doing more damage with Skirk running an attack cup, so it is what it is. Now, I don't find myself using Skirk's proper ult all that much, so it does seem like leveling that up is a bit of a waste of the Mora and the various resources, but sometimes I may be able to actually take advantage of Skirk's proper ult at the end of like a Spiral Abyss fight to end it cinematically, so we do have that. That ult does a lot of damage, so I could probably consider incorporating that whenever I notice that someone has maybe less than 600,000 health left, and then I'll be like, okay, that's a moment where I'm going to actually pop Skirk's ult. Now, for those wondering, the rotation that seems to make the most sense to me is to start off with Layla's skill, rocking that Sac Sword into Yelan, into Shenhe, again with that hold skill, into Layla, ideally refreshing the shield, and then into Skirk. Now, obviously, this is not the Skirk team. So let's address why I've deviated so dramatically from that particular team. First off, why am I not using Escoffier? Can you think of the reason why I'm not using Escoffier? It's really obvious. 3, 2, 1, I don't have her. That's it. Were you expecting a different answer? Okay, and why am I not using Furina? Well, it's actually the same reason. I don't have Escoffier. Furina's 2 biggest strengths, in my opinion, are number 1, she has team-wide damage percent buffs, and then number 2, she has Hydra damage and application without the need for normal attacks. If I were to run Furina instead of Yelan in a Skirk team, I'd need to replace someone in this team with a team healer, like for example Charlotte or Mika. And with Shenhe on the team, who I haven't built for DPS, here's the deal. Furina is only buffing, at best, herself and Skirk. Okay, that being said, I have like a sort of DPS looking Charlotte build, but not really, let's be real here. If Furina is only buffing herself and Skirk in this particular regard, the DPS of the team, by my limited understanding, ends up being more or less the same, if not slightly less, than Skirk and Yelan DPS. Because I've read somewhere that apparently, this could be wrong, but hear me out, apparently, Yelan's off-field damage is around about twice as much as Furina's before Furina's ult buff kicks in. And keep in mind, Furina's ult buff is plus 75% DPS, plus 75% damage, which on a Furina build that tends to run an HP cup, at least my Furina build runs an HP cup, I suppose that could come out ultimately as plus 75% damage, but it's not plus 100% damage. Either way, I'm not convinced that running Furina and Skirk ends up being more damage than running Yelan and Skirk. You know what I mean? If I were to decide and grab Escoffier during her rerun, then oh yeah, 100% I would be locking in on the Skirk team. And then of course the big question would be, which character would I choose to run in the Shenhe slot? Maybe it'll still be Shenhe, maybe it'll be someone else. But since I don't have her, I personally am opting to free up Furina for a variety of reasons, including the other side of Spiral Abyss or whatever I need when Stygian Onslaught comes out. Because let's talk about that second bit of Furina's biggest strength being the Hydro app that doesn't require normal attacks. Well, Skirk is a normal attacker, so I could already use Skirk and Yelan really well. So there's not as much of a reason for me to run Skirk and Furina, which means I can run Skirk, or rather I can run Furina with someone else, like Tenacity, or even better, Mawika. To me, the biggest thing about Skirk teams is that, with the notable exception of Escoffier, we really don't have like a particularly strong off-field cryo DPS. Maybe Rosaria, kind of, but if I were to run Rosaria in, let's say, the team that I outlined, then I would need a healer or a shielder for that team, and at that point it could be someone like Medic Moda. There's an option right there. All I know is, with all the experimenting that I've done for mono freeze teams, the one that has worked for me is, of course, the Layla, Shenhe, and Yelan team. And I've even taken this through the current Spiral Abyss, and then everything seems to have worked out fine. Obviously, this current Spiral Abyss is very much a Skirk Abyss, so we'll just have to see what happens when a few more Abysses have come through, a few more Stygian Onslaughts, and then, of course, the inevitable Escoffier rerun. Then I'll be able to make a much more informed judgment on whether or not I personally need her, and then, based off that, whether or not you guys may want to grab her. But either way, until then, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. How do you feel about Escoffier-less Skirk teams? Because that's really the big challenge, I think, for a lot of people who are playing Skirk, is making a team that works for them without Escoffier. Because once you have Escoffier, and more importantly, once you have Furina as well, well, maybe less importantly, that one's a lock. But for the rest of us who don't have Escoffier, that's the challenge. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
It is time.
Transfiguration. Do your master's bidding.
This calls for some pomp and ceremony.
My turn.
Good lord, I was forgetting your lines.
Where were we?
The night is cold.
Gotcha.
Our performance has yet to conclude.
Take your true form. By ordinance divine.
Stars, shine for me.
I dance
like
for you,
star.
my dear. The stage is yours, my queen.
I shall take the spotlight once more.
The night is cold.
Busted. Game's up. Fun's over. My will embodied. Do your master's bidding.
Don't be scared.
And now, a towering return to
The curtain call has